Hey friends, my name is Connor. I'm the founder of the Unicorn Factory, a freelancer marketplace in New Zealand. Welcome to my brand new channel. On this channel, I am going to show people who cannot code how they can build and grow online marketplaces and directories like I did with the Unicorn Factory, even if they don't have funding, they don't have developer friends, or they can't code. So this time last year, I spoke at the No Code conference in San Francisco, where I explained to people how I built the Unicorn Factory using tools like Webflow, Airtable, and Zapier. Since doing the talk, I published it online. A lot of people have asked me if I could do a follow-up video on how the Unicorn Factory's changed over the last year. And given that today is the 1-year anniversary of that talk at the No Code conference, I decided to start this channel and give everyone a little bit of an update on things like the types of tools that I'm using now, the new workflows that are running the Unicorn Factory, and tips and tricks for anyone who's potentially considering building their own marketplace or directory. If this sounds like something that you'd be interested in, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and let me know in the comments down below what type of no-code platform you are working on so I get a bit of an idea on what kind of tutorials to create. So I'm going to kick things off in the first video by taking you behind the scenes of the Unicorn Factory and showing you what tools I am currently using in November 2020 to run the Unicorn Factory. This will be a great intro to anyone who's new to no-code. You'll get an overview of all the tools that are out there and how they are used. I won't be going into too much detail about each tool in this video, but I will be making deep dives and workflows videos on each tool in the future, so just keep an eye out for those. But before we dive into the tools, let me show you Unicorn Factory so you can kind of see what you can build with no-code tools. Cool, so the Unicorn Factory is a two-sided marketplace that I created to make it easy for New Zealand businesses to find and hire local freelancers. So the way it works is clients can just come to our site, they can search for the types of skills that they're looking for and then filter users based on their experience level and their current availability and their rates and other factors like that. If clients are not exactly sure what it is that they're looking for, or they just have a project brief, they can also jump onto our job board page, fill out the brief, tell us what their goals are, what their requirements are, what their budget is, and then what we will do is we'll put it onto our job board, and then freelancers who are interested in working on that particular project can apply for them there. So at the moment, it's also free for clients to contact freelancers. All they need to do is just fill out the application form or the contact form on their profile page. And then what we'll do is we'll automatically forward all that information onto the freelancer. I wanted to set it up like that to make the entire experience of finding and hiring the right freelancer as frictionless as possible. So on the other side of the site, we have the Freelancer Dashboard. So this is the freelancer facing side of the website. And on here, we have our job board that I just mentioned before. And freelancers can just jump on here, click into a project, read the project brief, and if they are interested in working on this particular profile, they can just let me know that they're interested, and then I'll do an email introduction to that client. We also have a small little analytics dashboard where they can kind of see how many people have visited their profile page in the last 30 days, how many people have clicked on their portfolio link, and how many people have clicked on their LinkedIn link. Freelancers can also let us know whenever they close a deal. They just fill out this form here, and then what happens is we have a little celebratory GIF go up in Slack where we all party, everyone gets to congratulate each other, and it's a mighty fine time. Freelancers can also update their availability, their rates, or if they want to do a complete profile refresh, they can just do that here as well, so that we have all the information up to date at any given time. Last but not least, if freelancers want to get access to a few little additional perks, for example, priority listing on the site, or they want the pro badge, then they have the opportunity to upgrade their plans here, and they can just add their credit card details, and then they can automatically upgrade their accounts. So since launching the Unicorn Factory in June 2018, we've had over 2,000 freelancers in New Zealand apply. We currently have 550 active freelancers on the platform. We've worked with over 1,600 different Kiwi business. A lot of them have come back and rehired different types of freelancers. And right now I'm in the process of expanding Unicorn Factory into Canada because I've moved here. And as I said in the intro, I managed to build the entire Unicorn Factory without funding, without developers, and without me actually knowing how to code. In fact, I still don't know how to code today. Learning how to use the tools that I'm about to show you was really game-changing for me. Beyond just being able to build tools like Unicorn Factory, it's actually created a whole bunch of work opportunities for me. So since learning these tools, I've built websites for people in Webflow, I've automated some key business processes, and I've built entire databases and CRMs for people using Airtable. What's particularly awesome about these tools is once you've got it set up for your clients, you can just hand it over to them, and it's a lot easier to continue working with what you have given them than if you just give them a block of code. And that's making it super appealing to businesses and business owners who can't code to use these types of tools to power their business. Just in terms of setting expectations, I don't want you to think that using no code is a walk in a park. It does take time to learn these tools. It took me about 4 to 5 months to get comfortable with the first tool that I'm going to be introducing you to, which is Webflow. And then there's a whole bunch of trial and error that just happens over time. And it honestly took me about a year where I got to the point where I could publish the first version of the Unicorn Factory. I can, however, promise you that if you manage to stick through the first 3 months of learning all these different tools, you are essentially going to get superpowers that are currently only reserved for developers. You'll be able to build some pretty epic platforms. You'll be able to automate a whole bunch of workflows that you're currently doing manually, and it will be a lot of fun in the process. No code is particularly good for people who have tried to learn how to code but struggled with it. I was one of those people. I went through the process of trying to learn how to code through different online courses, but it never quite stuck with me. So if you're someone who cares more about building something rather than becoming a developer, then I think this is the type of stuff that is really going to help you get your ideas off the ground. But without further ado, let's just jump in and check out the tools that I'm currently using to run the Unicorn Factory. So the first tool I want to show you is Webflow, and Webflow is where my no-code journey started. Webflow is a website builder that allows you to design mobile responsive websites visually, and it's a phenomenal tool. The way that it works is you can just drag in certain elements like sections, headings, text, videos, images, forms onto a particular page, and what Webflow will do is it will visually code the website for you so you can see in real time what your site looks like, and it is amazing. So the reason I use Webflow is honestly because I stumbled into it. I was researching different website builder tools and I just came across them on Product Hunt, and as I got started, I found it quite difficult to use, and it was actually on my second attempt that I then really started to get a hang of it. I started watching a lot of tutorials on YouTube or in their Webflow University, and that's really what got me into Webflow in the first place. Now that I've been using it for a few years, there's no other Webflow building tool that I would use. So one thing that is particularly awesome, besides just it being easy to design your website, is their CMS functionality. So what happens is, particularly with a directory, there'll be a lot of different pages that I'll need to create for freelancers. But what their CMS feature allows me to do is just to create a template page, for example, for profiles or for case studies, and then I can use their internal database to dynamically populate that particular page. So this is what the Webflow CMS looks like in the back end. It's just a bunch of form fields where you can populate the information that applies to a particular freelancer, and as soon as you hit the save button, it automatically sends all that information and dynamically populates all of the fields in your Webflow page. And that is particularly useful when you have new freelancers join the platform, because now I can just automatically populate the back end of the Webflow CMS, and that automatically creates a new page for me. And that makes building an online marketplace super easy with Webflow. Cool, so next up we have Airtable, and I honestly do not even know where to start describing how awesome Airtable is. So Airtable is what I use for the database on the Unicorn Factory. So everything, like all of our freelance information, all of our client information, messaging, transactions, profile updates, all runs through Airtable. So it doesn't matter if someone is submitting a form in Webflow, if someone is making a payment through Stripe, everything runs through Airtable, so that is the one place that is the source of truth when it comes to all the information on the Unicorn Factory. So the one thing that caught my attention with Airtable really early on was just the slick interface that they have, and just my ability to organize information very nicely and visually. So right now we're looking at the freelancer funnel, which is basically all of my freelancers who have ever signed up to the Unicorn Factory grouped by the stage of their application. And while we're here, let's talk about another feature that I really love in Webflow, and that is views. So views are basically filtered versions of the original table. So if I, for example, want to have a table with all of the freelancers that are currently in review, I can just go and recreate a version of this table and then go ahead and apply filters that basically filter out those freelancers that are currently in the review stage. One thing that it allows you to do that is super powerful is, for example, when I am reviewing a freelancer, as soon as I approve them, I can just click this simple button here, which moves them to the Webflow Ready view, which is the view that basically has all the approved freelancers who are about to be sent to Webflow. And then as soon as this information is added, then what happens is I can then trigger automation that sends this information from Airtable to Webflow. So there are two more things about Airtable that I want to mention. First of all, they have a mobile app, which means that I can update records and approve freelancers on the fly without having to be near my computer. And the other feature that is awesome is you can use all of that data that you're generating in all your different tables and create nice visual tables and graphs. So you can have pivot tables, you can have timelines with records broken down by quarters or weeks or months. And if you are a data-driven person, then you will really love what you can do with Airtable. So next up, we have Zapier. So I want to go back quickly to that example where I send a freelance information from Airtable to Webflow. That just doesn't happen automatically. In order to make that happen, you need a tool like Zapier. So what Zapier does is it connects a whole bunch of different software to each other and allows you to send data between them. So Zapier's been around forever, and they are incredibly popular, not just amongst people who are no-coders. I know a lot of developers that use this to quickly spin up simple automation or prototypes. And the thing that is particularly awesome about Zapier is they connect with over 2,000 apps. So no matter what apps you're using, you are likely to find a Zapier integration, which then allows you to automatically connect your tools to other tools. So the thing that drew me to Zapier at the beginning was just how easy it was for me to set up my first Zap. Out of all the no-code platforms that are out there, Zapier is probably the easiest to learn, and honestly, it's very, very addicting setting up automations, especially at the beginning. Cool, and so lastly, the last main tool that I use on the Unicorn Factory is Memberstack. And so what Memberstack allows you to do is to turn your Webflow site into a membership site. So for the longest time, user accounts was the most requested feature on the Webflow wishlist. Not being able to have user accounts made it really difficult for me to do things like Freelancer Dashboards, or even just doing simple things like allowing freelancers to update their profiles. I would always have to manually send them update links, and over time that just really makes it difficult to take on too many freelancers. So luckily, Memberstack came along, and it was actually started by two people who were in the Webflow community at the time, Duncan and Tyler. And they just took matters in their own hand and just built this absolutely amazing platform, which is essentially just code that you copy and paste onto your site. And then from there, what you can do is you can hide certain contents based on user types. You can do payments where a user can upgrade their account, make a payment through your Stripe account. And using Memberstack really allowed me to turn the Unicorn Factory from a hobby into a actual business that makes more money than it costs me. So I've used Memberstack a lot, not just on the Unicorn Factory, also on other projects. And I know that a lot of people who create blogs with gated content use tools like Memberstack as well. At the moment, there is no real competitor out there. Now, I know that Webflow is planning on building an internal version of user accounts to complement their Webflow e-commerce. But for the time being, there's really nothing else that I would recommend other than Memberstack if you do want to use, if you do want to have gated content or create a membership site. Okay, so next up we have Jetboost. And what Jetboost allows me to do is to build search and filter functionality for our freelancer directory. And what makes that useful is that the entire user experience for people trying to find freelancers just gets significantly better, because now they can see all the freelancers that fit their requirements at any one time. So Jetboost became particularly important to me when we crossed the 200 freelancer mark. I got a lot of feedback from clients just explaining to me how difficult it was for them to find the right freelancers. And not just was it difficult for clients to find the right freelancers, there were often also a lot of freelancers who wouldn't get the right exposure because they'd be on page 8 of the pagination of the Webflow collection list. But luckily, this guy called Chris Spaggs came along, who is a no-code wizard. He's actually a developer. He has come over to our side, and he just now goes and builds these awesome little add-ons for Webflow sites. So if you are working on a membership site, or you're using a directory, you've got a blog, or all that kind of stuff, check out Jetboost, because it is a game changer just when it comes to the user experience side of things. So the next tool I want to introduce you to is Parabola, or I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but it's a fantastic tool. Now, Parabola is an automation tool that, like Zapier, connects all my different platforms to each other. One big limitation that I run into with Zapier though is that I can only send one record at a time between the different platforms. But if I, for example, want to update all of my records across all of the different platforms at the same time, Zapier isn't really the ideal tool for it. One particular use case where this came up very often is when I decide to make a bigger change to the platform, for example, to change the naming of the payment plans. Now, what I would have to do is I'd update the payment plan inside of Airtable, but then I would have to manually update it in Webflow, MailerLite, Memberstack, and before Parabola came along, it really wasn't that easy to do. There were really two ways that I could do it. Firstly, I could either do everything manually, which is completely out of the question because I'm lazy and I don't like spending my time on things like that. Or the second option was create a separate Airtable view where you would then just manually move records that you wanted to update into that view and then use Zapier to basically zap things back and forth. And the problem with that is that it would just chew into my Zapier credits way too much. And because Zapier is, relatively speaking, a more expensive tool, I didn't want to use up all my zaps on there. But luckily, Parabola comes along, and what they do really well is they keep all of your platforms in sync. Now, as I said, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about how Parabola works, but I actually have another video on this channel that explains to you how I set up my freelancer ranking system, and that will give you the entire rundown of how Parabola works. So please go and check that out if you are interested. So, lastly, I'm going to introduce you to some of the email marketing tools that I use. I've really never been a huge email marketer, but I hired a freelancer off the Unicorn Factory and they made me realize the importance of a good onboarding process. So we've switched our email marketing to MailerLite. I've tried MailChimp and I tried ConvertKit, but I ended up opting for MailerLite simply because they had a very generous free tier to start off with. But in essence, all the tools do the same. The main reason why I use MailerLite, or why you should use a mailing platform like this, is because you can really create awesome onboarding experiences. So I've got some email sequences set up for when a user sends me an application, when their trial is approved, and when their trial is complete. And so I've really just started using it. We're still in the very early days of it, so I'll report back on this in the future. So one thing that is pretty difficult to do with MailerLite is sending transactional emails. So MailerLite is phenomenal when it comes to email sequences. For example, when a trial is completed and I want to send a freelancer 3 or 4 different emails to remind them to upgrade, then it's great. However, when it comes to one-off emails like inquiries that are being forwarded to freelancers, or when I introduce a client to a freelancer, then you can't really use a tool like MailerLite, ConvertKit, or MailChimp. And trust me, I tried them all. I just couldn't do it. Maybe I'm wrong. If I am wrong, please let me know. But so what I used to do was just use the Zapier app for Gmail and just dynamically populate the email with information that someone would submit in a inquiry form. But the problem with that is the emails just didn't look very professional, and I've just decided to really step up some aspects of the professional look of the Unicorn Factory and how I engage with different types of clients. And so this is where BeeFree comes in. So what it is it allows you to design different types of emails. And then what's particularly cool about BeeFree is you can export the code, and then I copy and paste the code from the email into Zapier and then populate that template with the dynamic data that I get from Airtable or wherever else it comes from. I also use a tool called Postmark to deliver the emails. That was recommended to me, and apparently you get better open rates and you end up less in other people's spam folders. Another cool thing about Postmark is you can actually track if someone opens your emails or if someone clicks on the links, so that was another huge plus. So that's it. Those are all the tools I'm currently using to run the Unicorn Factory. And just keep in mind, I've been working on the Unicorn Factory for the last 2.5 to 3 years. So this is definitely not where it starts. You can really get something pretty epic up and running just by learning how to use Webflow, a bit of Zapier, and a little bit of Airtable. And then all the other tools that I just introduced you to are things that just naturally get added to your stack over time. So in future videos, I'm going to be diving deeper into specific workflows, into specific tools, how I use them, and hopefully that will serve as inspiration for starting your own marketplace. Thanks so much for sticking around for the entire video. Please let me know what you thought about it in the comments, and I look forward to seeing you back at the next one. Bye!